inclusive leadership and governance. Promoting women to leadership roles in urban planning, architect, and construction can help shift the focus towards more inclusive design. Gender quotas and mentorship programs, as the previous speaker I've talked about, can help ensure that women are represented at all levels of decision-making. In conclusion, Chair, gender inclusion in the built environment in South Africa and in other developing countries is an ongoing journey that have seen progress, but still faces significant challenges. Addressing these challenges require concerted efforts from government, private sectors, civil society, and communities. By focusing on gender-sensitive design, increasing women participation in decision-making, and implementing policies that prioritize safety, accessibility, and equal access to resources, we can see South Africa and Africa at large can create a built environment that is more inclusive, equitable, and empowering for all genders. Thank you, Chair. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Professor Twala. Thank you for sharing with us the progress of gender inclusion in South Africa. You did mention that even though we still see the gender disparity, but some progress have been made. You talked about initiatives to increase capacity for women, particularly those in the academia. You talked about the writing retreat, which women in the academia can benefit from. You also talked about celebrating, setting out a day to celebrate women, and also talked about the inclusion of gender-sensitive urban planning, which encourages safety public spaces. Thank you so very much, Prof, for your contribution. We appreciate you for this. So we'll move on to the second. Meanwhile, to everyone, if you have questions, you can post them on the chat. If you have comments, you can be ready to speak at the appropriate time. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the second presenter, the second speaker, Dr. Okay, you have the floor. Doc, we can't hear you. Okay, we can't hear you.
Okay. I hope I'm audible now, please.
Yes, you are. You are now.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. So I was saying that I was appreciating the organizer for inviting me, as well as Professor Riza. Thank you for that presentation. Then Professor Twala, thank you also for presenting a perspective from South Africa. In the next couple of minutes, I just want to talk about gender inclusion as touching what we do here in FUTA, and based on the existing research that has been done by others, that's general international wide. From Building Industry Social Equality Survey, it was stated that about 66% of women responded, that was people that responded to that particular survey. They indicated that they experienced discrimination or prejudice in the built environment, and that's actually based on their gender. So if this is not based on their profession or based on their ethnicity or based on the country where they come from, and they indicated that it's actually based on gender, that's let us know that there are still gender issues. Of course, not just in construction, it's everywhere, but we are more concerned about what is happening in the built environment. Okay, so as we strive to create a more inclusive built environment, we can be sure that. So as we strive to create a more inclusive built environment, we should remember that every individual deserves to feel safe, valued, and empowered in the spaces they inhabit. Okay, and this is to let us know that it's not just about women and just not about women, We are talking about both gender. So every individual, including both men and women, shall deserve the right to feel safe, to be valued, and to be empowered in the spaces that they inhabit. And of course, when we prioritize gender inclusion and equity, we can unlock the full potential of our communities and build a brighter future for generations to come. That's talking about gender equality, gender inclusion, gender equity, and the rest of them. There's no way we have all of these and we will not have a good and a better society altogether. Okay, I don't know what is wrong with this. Okay, so when we prioritize gender inclusion and equity, we can be sure that we are unlocking the full potential of the community. Okay, so from our earlier study, we have discovered 3 major barriers to gender inclusion as far as the study we have done in this area. And the first and the most important one for us has to do with societal and cultural barriers. That's talking about issue of society and what my culture. Actually, for us in this part of the world, we know that for female generally, we always see them as not strong enough to do some male-dominated jobs. And of course, society also see them as very weak and unable to actually do much. So there are a lot of stereotypes, there are a lot of biases, and of course, this has led to lack of representation, not just in the industry, even among students that we have around us. Okay, they believe that courses in engineering, courses in construction, they are more of a male-dominated area. So hardly will you see female coming to that area. Then we also have the physical and the spatial barriers, and that has to do with inaccessibility as well as unwelcoming spaces. Since male have been the one domineering the spaces over the years, then it's become a difficult matter for female to actually come in and rise through the rank and become also very important in that particular discipline. Then lastly, we have the economic and policy barriers, and this one has to do with number one, the issue of funding. Okay, because the male are in power, they have access to funding, access to they are the one that makes the policy and all of that. So for the female gender, there's limited funding. Then of course there are inadequate policies, and of course there are lots of issues when it comes to regulatory frameworks that can actually enhance or aid gender inclusion. In the same survey by Building Industry Society, Building Industry Social Equity Survey, it was recorded that 65% of respondents indicated that it is important or extremely important to increase diversity of the built environment. So if this is the case, then what can be done? So there are some strategies for improvement that we have been able to come up with in our previous researches. One of them is to adopt what we refer to as inclusive design principles. And that means design right from the beginning of a project, right from the beginning of our built environment, right from the city planning, where we have a design for diversity, where we have design for accessibility, and we have design for safety, whereas everybody is included. Of course, I know we are more concerned about gender, but in this case, we are looking at all inclusiveness beyond just gender. Everyone, regardless of who they are, where they come from, language, and the rest of them, can actually relate with the design and been able to participate effectively. Then the second one has to do with participatory planning and community engagement. Okay, this is important because there is a need for the every gender to actually have a voice in the community. And how can this be done? This can actually be done when there is an organized community engagement, and it has to be participatory, where diverse stakeholders are involved in decision making. For instance, the female parts, the male parts, the youth, the children, and everybody is involved, not just a set of people, taking decision for the entire community. Because of course, if you are there and you want taking decision, you always want to make decision, take decision that will favor you without actually thinking about the other people. This may not be done in a negative manner, but just because they're not there. But when they are represented there and they also hear their mind and their view, you can be sure that this is going to be an non-inclusive decision making. Then the issue of policy and regulatory reforms is actually very important, where policies and regulations right from the National Assembly. For us in Nigeria, we know what is happening with Natasha in the National Assembly. Of course, women issue and all of that, and you see people rising up from different parts. So policy and regulatory reform is also a very key issue if you must promote gender inclusion in the built environment. Now, for us, FUTA, we have adopted so many strategies from the UN, we have this E for She strategy, more or less like the men standing in for the women. And of course, we do this even among our students in such a way that when there are issues or assignments, of course, sometimes we address only the men to actually help and ensure that the women are carried along. But we did not also stop there, so that we will not just be biased, because there are another is one thing to talk about gender inclusion. Another thing is gender bias. So for us not to be biased, we also introduce what we refer to as she for he, okay? So that we not just continue to promote he for she, we can also promote she for he. Then there's something we also introduced, women in STEM. Currently, there is a project, a solar power project that's been that's currently going on in our institution. And what that project is doing is to actually recruit girls from different departments to be involved in that particular project. So they go for like an internship. They go there once in a week, where they are provided with the basic need, the helmet, the safety boots, and all of that. So they are involved in the project from the very beginning. And when such a project is to be rounding up, you can be sure that they will also be there as part of the project. So women in STEM is one of the ways or one of the strategies we are promoting gender inclusivity. Then we have talked about gender inclusion in grant and fund application. For us in FUTA now, any grant or fund you're applying for, aside from the fact that most of the grant holders actually include some percentage of women and all of that, we have decided that at least there must be 30% women representation in whatever application you are presenting that will go through the school committee. So this is one of the ways or one of the strategies for improving or for ensuring gender inclusiveness. Then over the years, a center has been established known as Center for Gender Issues in Science and Technology, that's CGC in FUTA, and that is to link into issues that has to do with genders, as well as should have to do with inclusiveness in both science and technology area. So in conclusion, we have, through the Center for Gender Issues in Science and Technology, we have decided that creating a more inclusive built environment requires, number one, a motivated approach. And this approach can come in different areas, and the approach can come from different departments, from different faculty, depending on the best way we see it from our perspective, because of course, it will not be ideal to be stereotyped in approaching this issue. So we are looking at different approaches of different means of achieving this. And of course, the essence is that it must address the social aspect, the cultural issues, the physical issues, as well as economic barriers that prevent equitable access. So we are more concerned about those 4 areas. So any of those approaches that is not addressing the social, the cultural, the physical, and the economic issues, then we don't count that as a good approach. And of course, that actually stems from principle of sustainability. So we want to enhance or encourage a sustainable environment through gender inclusion. Then lastly, by working together to implement inclusive design principles, policies, and practices, that is what has been sent to all the departments, all the schools, all the centers, that the principles, the policies, and the practices that will be coming out from such places must be to implement inclusiveness, and that can actually help to build a more just and sustainable future for all and sundry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oke, for sharing this with us. You did mention, of course, still the low figures that we still need to improve in terms of that. And then you specifically talked about barriers such as societal and cultural issues, inaccessibility and the unwelcoming space, inaccessible and unwelcoming spaces. And you talked about inadequate policies as some of the barriers affecting gender inclusion in Nigeria. And then you gave some strategies that could bring about improvement, like designing for diversity, accessibility, and safety. I'll just quickly say something here. I remember going to supervise some students on their industrial attachment, and this was a girl I was supervising at the time, and then going to the industry to see how she was doing. And I asked her, and that was like 5 or 6 years ago, and I asked her, how is everything going? She said everything is fine, except the fact that they don't have male and female restrooms, and that you're in the restroom and somebody's barging into the restroom. So I think the industry just really needs to come to terms with the fact that there are really, really 2 sets of people in the industry, and make these, different spaces so that women can actually be welcome and feel free and accommodated in the industry. So just speaking about making design, having designs that will accommodate different people and making them accessible and also safe. Then you talked about involving diverse stakeholders in decision-making and implementing and enforcing inclusive policy. And we also like the fact that you shared some of the things that are happening in your university at FUTA. We know the many challenges, but in spite of that, your university is still trying to show that it is supportive of women and trying to close this gender gap. For this, we are proud of what you are doing in your university. And if every group and every organization will do a little here and a little there, we believe we'll be able to close this gap. Dr. Oke, thank you very much for your contributions on this topic. And we'll go to the final session for today, and that will be taken by Dr. Temitope Omotayo. Doc, you have the floor. Is he not in? I saw okay. I saw him earlier. Just a minute. I don't know if he's out of the meeting. I can't see him yet anymore. Okay, well, I'll try to reach out to him. I don't know if he had a network issue or okay. So we could just open the floor for discussion at this point, and once he come in again, we would quickly take his session. So the floor is open for questions and contributions on this all-important topic. We are looking at gender inclusion in the built environment, progress, challenges, and strategies for improvement. So the floor is open. You can raise your hands, or you can drop your comments in the chat. Yeah, I could just set the ball rolling. Dr. Riza, thank you again for some of the videos you shared. I was particularly inspired about the video of the lady that was pregnant and walking. For most people down here, they would they might lose their jobs at that time. Like they might have them to step back. They can't accommodate them with the condition. Or worst case scenario, they could just or better still, they could say, okay, you are going to leave the job without pay. I mean, be on maternity leave without pay and then come back, and so that's what some other people faced on this side of the globe. What would be your advice? How can we try to improve the culture in our own industry to see that we begin to accommodate women and we begin to be more inclusive and understanding of what women go through?
That is a very difficult question to answer because, yeah, I mean, the context is different. I suppose for developing countries, because I'm also originally from a developing country, I'm from Indonesia. I think in Indonesia, they also face the same problems. It's always coming back to the economic performance of the business. So if they don't see the benefit, for example, of employing women, then it's very difficult to convince them or to change the industry to employ and retain women. So probably that is the first step. Show the business case, the importance why we need more women to enter the construction industry. And the second one, you mentioned about changing the culture. I think changing a culture is not something which can be done in a short term. So this should be a long-term endeavor. So small steps in doing it, not like trying to revolutionize the industry. I think that is not, to me, not the right way to go. But small baby steps to try to implement gender initiatives. I think I presented many gender initiatives available out there. I think start to consider which initiative can be implemented in your context is a good starting point in this regard. Baby steps. I think that's my view in relation to your question.
Thank you very much, sir. So we should take baby steps and not think of overturning the industry overnight. Thank you very much. Dr.
But like
Ma.
the effort, yeah, like the effort that you are doing at the moment, even having this kind of networking group, I think that's a very important step to promote, well, not promote, to support one another, and then to build the awareness among the wider community concerning the importance of women and the struggle that women face.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Dr. Na, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for this discussion, very dear to my heart. I think I wanted to just highlight 2 points from personal experiences I have had as a woman working in the industry and also in academia. So the first one is that I think that sometimes because of the culture we have, we don't ask for the opportunities, right? We don't ask for the opportunities as women. So and I'll give you an example. So typically, you mentioned it already, that even when you're working, you may not, and you're pregnant, you may not have the option of continuing to work, right? Let alone after your pregnancy, bringing your child into the workspace. And for me, I think that because I had a strong need to have time, a lot of time with my children, I asked for that opportunity to do that. And for me, I think asking for that opportunity didn't give me what I wanted, but it gave room for what typically is not the case. And what I mean by that is because I asked to have more time with my children for maternity leave. So in Ghana, you typically would have maybe 12 weeks with your children after you've had your children. And I wanted more than 12 weeks. So I started having that conversation with my employer ahead of having my baby. And what I got was some concession where we were working at the time. This was well before COVID and before hybrid became an option. So we had the concession of first of doing more than the 12 weeks. For at least, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. Now, within that 2 or 3 weeks, my employer agreed that we could try out me coming in with a nanny and the baby. And they made space for that, right? And then coming in and saying how the adjustments went. So I ended up having the opportunity to come into the space, my workspace, with my baby for 6 months, which is not typical of the culture. What am I saying with this story? Let's take baby steps by asking for the opportunities. Sometimes we never know, we might get it. The second point I also want to make is when we do get those opportunities, let's use them well so that we create room so that other women can have similar opportunities. Because again, as someone who was working in the supervisory position, and because I am a woman, I often give room for opportunities like this. However, if we give such opportunities and people don't use the opportunities well, they don't work up to their potential. And Prof Riza said something, that the organizations are looking at their economic well-being. So if you're not contributing to that in a way that makes you important to the organization, then how do they create these opportunities for us? So the 2 points I'm making is, one, do ask for the opportunities. Perhaps it is in those baby steps that we begin to change the culture, right? So it meant that for all my 3 children, I was able to come to work with them up until they were 6 months old or weaned off, right? So it created greater opportunities just because I asked. And secondly, when we do have those opportunities, let's make good use of it in a way that it keeps those doors open for others, right? So there were days I would go to work and not be able to work. But on the days that I was at work and could work, I was working. So then my employer was able to continually offer that opportunity to me and to others. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Na, for bringing those points out, that we should ask, we shouldn't assume, that it will be no all the time, that we should ask. And then when we have the opportunities, we should use it well. We should be value-adding people. We should bring value to the table. Thank you so much, Dr. Na. I think there is a question on the chat. It says, what prop tech solutions can be implemented to collect data for analysis to track progress in the long run, and how? I don't know, Neltal, I don't know, maybe you want to really speak about, I don't really, oh, I'm not really getting the question very well. Maybe you want to speak to that. I don't know, maybe you want to
Not
express.
a problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Thank you so much. I hope everyone is doing well. So basically the question that I'm asking is, when it comes to research and academia, of course, we have to collect data. And if we're looking at collecting large amounts of data over a long period to track where we currently stand to where we want to go, what prop tech solutions can the panelists maybe think of to collect that data, and also how can we make it accessible to other researchers who are possibly looking to benchmark out of the findings? For example, I'm based in Botswana, and I do research that's centered in gender equality and equity in South Africa, Botswana, as well as Zambia. So I was just looking for maybe suggestions on prop tech solutions that can be implemented. Yes, of course, like AI and machine learning, and maybe some sort of platforms that can also be accessible to researchers who may need that data in one centralized location. I hope that makes sense now.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. Dr. Riza, you want to respond?
We are still learning even in this particular aspect as well, because, for example, like gender diversity, we just started our data collection, nationally. So we are still building the database as well. So I suppose at this stage, in every context, we need to start the data collection process, because this can be done in 2-3 years. Like what you said, the question is about longitudinal, right? Long-term process. So we need to start now. But if you want to start now, we need to know the indicators that we want to measure. So therefore, eventually we have complete data which we can study further in the future. In terms of centralized data collection and so on, even in Australia, yeah, we are still doing poorly in terms of collecting and sharing data for public. But that is a good point. Yeah, we do need to start now, not only in terms of women in construction, but there are many other aspects where we can start collecting big data, which can be useful for future analysis.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the response.
I've shared my my email with the host, and hopefully we can possibly speak offline and explore other collaborative opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. She had another question, and this was a second question. In terms of mentorship, what have the panelists noted as the advantages and disadvantages of having a male mentor over a female mentor and vice versa in construction? So the floor is open, and Professor Twala, Professor Riza, Dr. Oke, any of you can contribute.
I guess for me, if I can start first, yeah, in the mentorship program in the Women in Construction project, actually the mentors are both male and female. I think the point is we need to accept the reality as well, because the majority of people who are working in the construction industry are men. In a sense, having a male mentor is useful, so to build the, I guess, the experience, knowing the other culture, the ways of working from male mentors. I guess that's the advantage of having a male mentor. But of course, female mentor can be useful as well, because the learning probably can go deeper, because the female mentor has experience from the start until reaching a certain decision. So having understanding or insight of the complete experience will be useful for the female mentee. That's based on my experience in running the mentorship program.
Thank you, Doc. Dr. Digi, Dr. Twala, and Professor Twala, any comments on this? Or anyone else who wants to contribute to this is free to also make comments.
Well, for my end, I think it's going to depend on a lot of variables and a lot of factors. Okay. But of course, where there are policies and there are good regulations and there are good frameworks, of course, there's nothing wrong in having a mentee or a mentor, male, female, that way. But in countries and situations where things are not that normalized, I think it's always safer and better to have like for a female to have a female mentor. It's always safer, because one of the things we talked about in this issue of mentoring and address the fact that you should know the person very well, to the point that if possible, get to know where such a person lives, where such a person what is going through, emotional issues and the rest. And of course, it becomes sometimes difficult for a man to really understand what the female part is actually going through, and vice versa as well. Even if you think you understand, and the societal, one of the issues I mentioned during the presentation, the societal perspective. By the time they start seeing you together, a lot of insinuations and the rest of them. So to avoid that, I think it's better and safer for you to be male and female. But of course, that's not sacrosanct. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Chair. Let me just come in. I think the issue of mentorship, to me, that one, it actually depends. One thing, it depends how comfortable is the mentee and how comfortable is the mentor. And one particular thing that you must also look at, sometimes you may have 2 or 3 mentors at the same time, because you find in terms of your specialty, there's a person who may deal with the hard issues around the mentorship, the technical issues. You find he cannot be able to deal with the soft issues. Then you get another mentor who's going to deal with other issues. I'm just saying, to me, it's not an issue either male or female. To me, it's about the issue of comfort. Who's the person whom we have identified where we are going to get value? Because to me, it's about mentorship. You may have a male mentor or a female mentor who's very busy. He won't have time for you. So the year will pass, nothing happens. The second year passes, but it's a male mentor if you're a male. But however, I'm just saying, to me, just to answer the question, it's around, to me, the comfortability, and also in terms of the goals. That because remember, if you want a person to mentor me, I do a lot of mentorship. I say, tell me what you want. Give me your plan. The mentorship, I'm working around your plan, not according to my plan, because I can say myself, you must go this direction. I'll be forcing you. But I'm just saying those are the things that myself we must look at in terms of choosing mentorship. And also just the emphasis, it doesn't necessarily mean that you must have one mentor. You may have a female mentor and a male mentor. You may also have female mentor. Also sometimes, remember also the issue of religion. Sometimes it determines the issue of cultural issues. It also determines. Some other people may say, look, I want to have a female mentor because not necessarily based on competence, but it's based on my religion, based on my culture. Yeah, Chair, I just want to contribute that.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you so much. Yes, Dr. Na, you wanted to respond to this? Please go ahead.
Yes, please. Just one more comment on the mentorship. So another thing that not necessarily directly to the question, but the point about mentorship, the issue of reverse mentorship, particularly because we don't have a lot of females already in the space. It's helpful when you have maybe a male and a female, like a male mentor, where you have that reverse mentoring happening for the male. So they also learn. So mind you, mentorship, we always think about it in one way. What am I, the mentee, getting from my mentor? But it's also what am I, the mentee, providing in terms of value to the person who is mentoring me? So that relationship also creates an opportunity where if we are in a male-dominated space, the male mentor is able to learn how to work with a female within that space, right? And it's also very helpful for the culture because then if there are no females in the space, where is the mentor going to learn to now work with a female? So when we talk about mentoring as well, let's look at the reverse of it. What value is the mentee providing? So these mentorship opportunities provide the opportunity in a male-dominated space for males to begin to work with females, appreciate the work dynamic that is involved, but also the females also learning the space and the dynamic that is involved. So then it helps with the culture. Right. So it even helps you to even recognize your biases, whether you are the female working with a female or a male working with a male. It also exposes your biases and then it helps us build, ourselves in creating a culture that encourages work between the different genders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add a little bit? Yeah, based on all the responses, yeah, to me, when I see mentorship, it's the same. Like, for example, when I mentor my PhD students, I have both male and female PhD students, although of course for PhD is much long period of time, but probably the relationship is similar. Yes, I agree. It's about finding the right match as well. So when I choose, in a sense, my PhD students, I need to feel comfortable with them, and they also need to feel comfortable with me. I think this particular aspect is very important. And I think Dr. Na also raised an important aspect concerning learning from one another as well, the different styles of working between male and female.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yes, Dr. Grace, you have the floor. Dr. Grace, you have the floor. Okay, the floor is still open. Still open to comments and contributions or questions.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much for the wonderful presentations and all the comments given. I have one question, comment. I'm very mindful that we are indeed discussing something to do with us women working with the male in their dominated field. And I'm just being mindful that this mentorship, it seems it's done in isolation from the environment where the activity of construction happens, where it's male-dominated as of now. So my question to Dr. Liz is, how do you manage the two? Anyway, the pictures that I've seen so far, they are like done in isolation of men. So I'm just skeptical that once the female have been mentored, will they be able to perform in the male-dominated environment if they are not trained right there and then where this activity happens? Secondly, it's my observation, like as a lecturer for some years, I've noted that female candidates or students, they perform really well academically, but when they go out to field, they lose that confidence. I don't know whether you have observed the same in other countries. So like in Malawi, we have very few female members or professionals that are active, that maybe have their own architecture firms or they are participating in the construction industry, not as contractors, because a contractor can be anyone else, but as the players like site agent, site engineer, project architect, such things, they are quite rare, yet academically here, they perform really well. So those are my two comments. Thank you.
You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. The first one, so just for me to be clear concerning the question, so it's about translating the mentorship experience into real world practice. Is that the question? And I think I heard something about where the mentorship is happening as well. Is that the question?
Yes.
If you can clarify.
Yes, Prof. Yeah, it's that concern where the mentorship is
Okay.
happening elsewhere, not the actual environment. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So that is definitely a sensitive issue. So in terms of location of mentorship, for example, so usually what we do is in two ways. They can do it in person or they can do it online. So for male and female, for example, if they are not comfortable in meeting together, they actually can do it online. If they want to meet face to face, that is also okay. But usually it's done either in the workplace, in a public space, in a sense, or can be in again, not in a isolated space, but in a space where they are not alone between men and women. In terms of translating the experience into practice, it really depends on the goal of the mentorship. So it depends on the mentor and the mentee. Yes, now they are matched. So what is the goal? If the mentee would like to gain a particular understanding, then this should be set in the beginning with the mentor. So therefore, they both can work together to achieve the goal. So I think that is the important step. For the second question, women are doing well in studying, but then somehow when they work in the construction industry, they lose their motivation, for example. I think it happens because of the challenges of working in the construction industry when the environment is not conducive, is not supportive for women to work in the industry. Of course, they will leave the industry. So there is a problem of retaining women in the construction industry. I think earlier we discussed some issues in relation to this matter, like the maternity leave, for example. Yes, so to me, that is the problem why women who are doing well in universities, but then when they work in the construction industry, eventually they leave the industry or they lose interests because of the culture, because of the work environment. So therefore, the industry is losing half of the talents of the population. So therefore, it's about slowly changing the ways of working in the construction industry by baby steps, and try to see the initiatives available in the construction industry and which one can be adopted first in that particular context.
Thank you so much for your response. Do we have any comments as we begin to shut down? As we prepare to shut down? Any more comments or questions? Professor Fori, would you like to say a thing or two? Good afternoon, Prof.
Well, good afternoon. It's good to see an assembly of international speakers. Riza, good evening to you. It's almost time for you to be in bed, but it's good that you're here with us. It's extremely late. I think Patience mentioned it at the beginning. It's extremely late in Australia, but Riza is with us. Thank you very much. It was a fantastic presentation, and the DD I know from a long time before. Dr. OK, I haven't yet met, but it's good for all of you to come and share your opinions about the place of women in construction and how we can actually encourage it. Well, someone said women hold up half of the world, half of the sky. Yes, maybe they hold up more than half of the sky. I was very, very impressed with the way Na explained how she was able to actually take her babies to the office. If Na is in Ghana, then next time I come, I'll go and visit her in her office. And maybe the babies are no longer babies; they're grown up. But I hope one day I'll meet them as well. Children who've been brought up in the very hard place of the construction site or office. I think these series of webinars are very, very, very useful. And I just want to encourage patients to continue, because I think you can see that people are benefiting from what you're doing. And I thank you. And also that's why I come, because I'm hoping that from today I will not have to say anything, but I come because I benefit, and I think it's good for me to know that these efforts are being made in order to ensure that we actually don't have a totally male-dominated industry anymore, but we actually have moved towards equalizing the proportion of men and women in the construction industry. I thank all of you for joining us today. I'm speaking now on behalf of patients. I thank all of you for joining us today, and let's continue to do what we can to enhance the gender balance in the or work towards approaching gender balance in the industry. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Prof. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you for your support of what we do. Thank you very much. So as we bring the program to an end, does anybody want to say something? Somebody trying to say something?
No, sorry, just want to say, yeah, it's good to see Professor Ofori as well. Not sure whether you remember, but actually I met you in person in 2004. Anywho, but it's good to see you.
All right, thank you. We'll take the vote of thanks quickly. US Esther, can you just do that quickly?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Patience. We want to thank God for this edition, another webinar for the month of March, the month of the celebration of the female gender. We thank God. And in actual fact, is this month we're celebrating our third year, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, our third year. So we thank God for the success of this webinar once again, and we want to thank everyone here who has contributed to the success of this webinar. Let me first thank Dr. Riza, all the way from Australia. Thank you for the sacrifice. Like it was said, you were supposed to be sleeping by now. We thank you for the insightful presentation. Thank you for all your contributions. We thank you for the way you have actually answered all the questions and so explicit. Thank you. It shows you really have experience, and then you are just in charge. And I also want to acknowledge the action points you brought out concerning the research, the data on gender diversity, that you're still learning and you are building the database. And that's like a take home to be done in Australia, and we too in Nigeria still, developing on that. It's just a learning process. We are not yet done. We're still, trying to do much more research and, to improve on database. So thank you so very much, Doctor. We are very grateful. And we know that when next we call you, you will always, beckon to our call. On that note, let me thank the panelists, all the panelists. I want to say thank you to Professor Wellington Tala. We appreciate you for your contributions. We appreciate you for even the questions too. You were able to give us your own insights and then give us out of your knowledge. We really appreciate you. Thank you for your time. We want to appreciate Dr. Ayodele, our own. Thank you for always being here. You are here again as one of the panelists. Even if you are not one of the panelists, you are always identifying yourself with us. We appreciate you so much. Thank you, sir. God bless you. We appreciate your insightful presentations. We appreciate Dr. Temitope Omotayo in absentia. Yes, he was with us. I noticed too, probably network, or he had to, for one reason or the other, he couldn't make his own contribution, but we thank him for accepting and even his time that he has spent with us. So let me appreciate our ever supporting Professor George, once again, George Ofori. Thank you. We will always love to hear from you and for your comments, we appreciate you. Let me just say that Dr. Riza, I would have loved to meet you because I was supposed to be in Australia for the FIG, but due to the multifaceted duties of the female gender, I have a lot of travels this year, so I won't be there. I was supposed to be there, but by the special grace of God, I hope to see you one day to be in Australia. But even before then, I will communicate with you because I'm actually also interested in your program. And thank you. I know many people have been asking questions and you have answered regarding international students. Thank you for that. And thank you for all you are doing in the construction industry, especially for the female gender too. So let me appreciate everyone. Dr. Na, wow, that was very interesting. Thank you for your insightful contribution. I actually have a similar experience, which has also, tamed my own daughter in such a way that she too is now impacting, bringing in such, even in the working environment, with the nursing, period, trying to incorporate it and putting it into the organization. Your submission is a very good one. And I know that many of us, especially our young ladies, will imbibe it. And I'm sure in the construction industry, it's going to thrive and it will help so many of us. Thank you for your insightful contributions and for the mentor the gender. We thank you for your contributions to, especially the reverse mentorship. It is also very important. So I want to say thank you to everyone who has attended this webinar. Your presence is what has kept us going. Even though we are few, the contributions being brought, the question and answers, you know, even the comments, we really appreciate you. And we thank God for all of us that have been here. I thank God for Dr. Patience. And this is one of my own personal interests, synergizing the academics with the construction industry. Today's topic is very, very germane, and I'm so happy. It makes me happy and motivates me. So I want to thank all the speakers, all the participants, and Dr. Patience, I thank you for these insightful topics and the webinar. So on this note, we're saying thank you, and we want to appreciate everyone, and we know that next month, you will even tell others, please, let's proclaim this gospel. We want others to come and benefit from it. So we need to improve on the sensitization. Thank you, everyone. God bless you. And those behind the crew, God bless you too.
Thank you very much, QS Esther, for appreciating all of us. Thank you very much. So as we close, I just want to suggest that we all take a look at Dr. Riza's cognitive .think. You know, I had the opportunity of taking that course, and it was really very mind-blowing. I particularly liked the clock exercise, how that even you'll be shocked how biased you can be. Most times we think this bias come from men only. Even we ourselves, we are biased. So it's going to really help us. And so many activities in that course that can really help us, really help us as professionals. So I just encourage us to take the website. He has dropped it on the chat, so just pick it out, paste somewhere, and then at your time try to do the course. Very, very interactive platform. You would really enjoy, and it's something you can do at your own pace, right? So it's something that would add to you, and it will help you to perceive the industry in a different light. So thank you again, everybody, for coming here. All our speakers, we're grateful. Dr. Riza, honestly, thank you for the sacrifice of the time, particularly noting the time difference. Professor Twala, we had so many commitments yesterday. He had some things to deliver, and today is here with us. Prof, thank you for the support all the time. Dr. DG, Dr. DG, okay, thank you so much. We appreciate you. He's head of department with all the load and the assignments. He's still here with us. We appreciate you. Dr. Temitope had classes in between. In fact, he just had to squeeze himself, you know, during the break, thinking he would be able to, you know, find a way of presenting, but it couldn't work. But we know he would come back some other time to give us his thoughts on this matter or on some other matter. And of course, Professor Fori, thank you for your fatherly role. I mean, it's just amazing how much you invest your credibility just to ensure that this work. Thank you, Prof. We are grateful. And for every other person that is here till now, thank you so much for your contributions, even for your presence. And most importantly, let's take these things we have learned to heart. Let's, you know, it is in consistency as we consistently practice what we have learned, a little here, a little here. Tiny baby steps, just like Dr. Riza said, that's how we change the industry. So we'll look forward to seeing you again next month. We would share the topic of the consideration for next month through all our platforms, and we'll keep engaging. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.